This year, I had the opportunity to go to the 72nd Cannes Film Festival to see the films in competition for the coveted prize, the Palme d'Or. I was there only for a couple of days, which wasn't enough time to see every single film, but hey, at least I was able to attend the biggest film festival in the world and meet some cool people. I wanted to share my thoughts and first impressions on some of the films I did get a chance to see before they were released into the world. Portrait of a Lady on Fire was the talk of this year's Cannes Film Festival. When I arrived there, everyone was praising it and making predictions. It was for sure an audience favorite to win the Palme d'Or, so I was really looking forward to seeing it, and it ended up winning the award for Best Screenplay at the festival. I remember standing in line for the night screening of this film, and the line was one of the biggest there. I didn't know much about it other than it was a period piece centered on two women. That was pretty much it. I didn't know what the tone of the film was going to be. It is directed by Céline Sciamma, a woman who directed Girlhood a couple of years back, which I found to be okay, and Tomboy, which has been in my watch list for quite some time now. So arriving at the theater, I was anticipating what some people were saying was a winning film. Did I think the same? Well, yes and no. First of all, what I loved most about this film were its technical achievements. Cinematography, framing, production design, costumes, and sound were all pretty stellar. Although I'm not an expert on the subject, I did think that the film wasn't historically accurate, or was trying to be for that matter. It did seem, however, that the story exists in some parallel universe, cut off from the rest of us, and this film is just a glimpse into it. It is sort of mysterious and it pulls you in from the opening credits, which I found to be quite mesmerizing. The story follows a young painter by the name of Marianne, who is commissioned to paint a portrait of a young woman on the brink of marriage. The woman in question doesn't want to get married, and had refused to pose for any artist that was previously commissioned to do the portrait. Marianne, on the other hand, has a plan on how to get close to the woman and get her to pose for her. From there, the story takes some not so unexpected turns. I thought the film was a little too long for my taste. I think it meandered a bit, and as the story was progressing, I got more and more disinterested. I think the main attraction of the film, for sure, was the performance by Adèle Haenel. She was the only reason I was glad I didn't walk out of the theater, because the last scene in the film, involving her, was really outstanding. It only sucked that she was the only character that had any emotional pull in the film. The lead, I guess, was very distant and not that interesting of a character for me. I didn't really care about her storyline, and I can't put my finger on why. Is it because of the writing, acting, or the mixture of both? In conclusion, all I can say is that I had trouble remembering the film because I felt like it was trying too hard to be highbrow, and no matter all the technical stuff it nailed, it still left me kind of indifferent. If you're a big fan of Céline's work, and if this kind of story interests you, then you're probably going to enjoy it, and I recommend you see it because it does have some great scenes in it. I, however, wasn't that impressed by the overall experience, and it left me quite hungry for more. The next film I saw at the festival was the new Terrence Malick feature, A Hidden Life. It is 3 hours long, and it once again was a film that didn't justify its runtime for me. I'm one of the biggest admirers of Malick's work, but at the same time, I do think his style of filmmaking can be underrated and overrated at the same time. From his debut with Badlands, he made significant mark on American and world cinema, and after solidifying his greatness with Days of Heaven, he went into a 20-year hibernation to re-emerge with his war epic masterpiece Within Red Line. Its style, although very similar to its predecessors, was even more audacious and ambitious in the way it presents its story. In the 20 years of not putting out any films, it becomes obvious that he was working on dozens of scripts at the same time, scripts that would later become a part of what is now considered Malick's renaissance. When I say scripts, I use that word very loosely. His 21st century films have been very scarce on the plot, and more packed with emotions expressed through visuals and music. And although that might sound like style over substance to some, I do stand behind most of his films post-2000s. I was enthralled watching The New World, The Tree of Life, To the Wonder, and even Knight of Cups, but Song to Song wasn't a standout for me. This is where I stopped being emotionally invested in his films. A Hidden Life is, I think, his return to better and more plot-driven films. although I do think he still isn't getting rid of that style we've grown so accustomed to this past decade. In his newest, Malick tells us a true story of Franz Jagerstatter, an Austrian farmer who refused to fight for the Nazis in World War II and was executed in 1943. This film, as well as any other Malick feature, is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. This time, he didn't have his regular Emanuel Lubezki as his cinematographer. Instead, he hired Jörg Widmer, who worked as a camera operator on many of his other films. The backdrop of the story are the breathtaking Austrian landscapes, specifically the village of Radegund, where Franz lives with his family, which was at one point the title of the film. He lives a quiet life with his wife, plowing their fields and raising their 3 daughters in an idyllic place, when suddenly it all becomes disturbed when the Nazi army sets foot into their village looking for recruits. That's when the conflict is introduced to the story, and Malick guides us through this emotional portrait with a steady hand. There are only some logistical flaws with the film that I had a problem with. For example, the actors in the film are Austrian and German, but Malick chooses to have them talk in English, and he wasn't consistent, and the actors didn't talk in English throughout the whole film. In some scenes, the actors would talk in German between each other, but then they would talk in English whenever they had to move the plot forward. That pulled me out of the film on several occasions. A great example of an American film which uses language to its advantage is Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. In that film, language was even used as a clever plot device, which made the story more interesting and compelling, and here language wasn't even a thought. I like the way Malick chose to tell his story. He didn't fall into the trope of portraying Franz as a hero of the Second World War. That would be too easy. As the title suggests, what he admires most about Franz is how he chose to protest Hitler's regime. He fought evil not for glory, but for peace of mind, quietly, without any hope for reward, because he knew it was the right thing to do. A Hidden Life will be appreciated by anyone who loves history and is curious by this man's extraordinary journey. I'll be covering the films I saw in chronological order from first to last. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe for more film reviews and video essays that are coming soon. Thanks for watching.